Hello, this is Jean Lopez, and this is week 7 of Math 141, and we are now starting to get into the real nuts and bolts of statistics, so I thought I would use this time to go over a homework problem that might be a little confusing to you because you will need to use StatCrunch, but then you also need to use some information that you learned in previous chapters. So I thought this exercise would be a good one to go over. You can see that it's in your homework from 6.2, and the question is 6.2.51. And it's asking you about a critical reading score for a standardized test that has a distribution of n 540 to 100. And we know from page 251 in our book that if we see this sort of notation, we know we're talking about a normal distribution because n is normal, 540 is the mean, 100 is the standard deviation. So that's important because now we know what we have to do in StatCrunch. It asks us to find the test score for the 75th percentile. So let's go ahead and go into StatCrunch. And we'll be going into statistics, to the calculator, and to the normal distribution. So we will go ahead and use the information that we have of the mean 540 and the standard deviation of 100. And they're asking us to find the 75th percentile. So we're not calculating x, we put in 0.75 for the 75th percentile in compute, and it tells us what the value is. And in this case, they're asking us to round to the nearest integer, so that would be 607. So we'll go ahead and type in 607 and press enter, and that is correct. Now they're asking us to find the 25th percentile, so we can use the same setup and just go ahead and substitute 0.25 for 0.75. And that gives us a value of 472, but we're going to have to go to 473 to round up and to check our answer there. All right, now they want us to find the interquartile range. Now that is not something that we're going to be able to technologically derive from this part of the application. We'll be able to do that later, but not now. But remember, back in chapter 3, specifically on page 96 to 97, it talks about the interquartile range, and it tells us that it's the difference between the 75th and the 25th percentile. So essentially, all we need to do to get this value is to subtract the value of the 75th from the 25th. So we will subtract from 607, we will subtract 473. And that will give us a value of 134. So we'll enter that, and that is correct. So this is an example of where you have to go back to something you've previously learned to apply it to answer the question. The last question is the interquartile range larger or smaller than the standard deviation? Well, we know the IQR is 134, standard deviation is 100, so obviously the interquartile range is larger. And that is it. I think that's the entire question. So I thought I'd go over that because there's several moving parts there and it could be a little confusing. So that's it for this week. I hope this helps. Hope everything's going well, and I will talk with you next week.